Hi there. So in the last round, I talked about sustainable countries and particularly renewable energy. So this round, I thought that I would focus on something on a much smaller scale. So I decided to look at sustainable cities. So one of the themes I've noticed amongst these sustainable cities is that they've got really great waste management policies. For instance, in San Francisco, they force all of their residents to recycle all items and to compost all foods. And because of that, they've increased their recycling by 80%. Additionally, certain bans can be incredibly helpful in managing waste as well. For instance, in Hamburg, they've not only banned plastic bottles, plastic cutlery, but they're also banning coffee pots. Now, coffee pots are incredibly popular right now in North America, and their popularity is just increasing. You see shops of Nespresso popping up left, right, and center, and they're incredibly bad for the environment. So it kind of makes sense for a city like Hamburg to ban these coffee pots because they are the ones who have to manage the waste in the end. Another theme that I've noticed is that sustainable cities encourage green buildings. So in Singapore, 80% of their buildings are green, and in San Francisco, they are home to nearly 700 LEED projects, and they have another 1,000 projects under development. And in Portland, they provide free home energy assessments, and they give out rebates and loans to help homeowners to retrofit their homes. Australian cities can try to follow these examples because, as we all know, in Australia, 20% of the buildings account for Australia's total GHG emissions. So by following these examples, Australia can substantially reduce their GHG emissions. Moving on to another important feature of sustainable cities is parks. So parks obviously play an important role in making a city sustainable because trees sequester carbon dioxide. And in cities such as Berlin, it's very interesting because 1/3 of the city is green. It's just parks. And even in places in New York, they make sure that within 10 minutes walk, there's a park for its residents. Having parks not only helps with the environment, but it also provides a place where people could do physical activities other than gym. They could have mental health boost. And not only that, it reduces urban heat island effects. And the list of the benefits of having parks just goes on, which is why cities should look into having more parks. Another important determinant of sustainable cities is sustainable transportation. So in Australia, transportation accounts for 16% of Australia's total GHG emissions. One of the ways that Australia can reduce its GHG emissions is by building more bike lanes. So not many people in Sydney are riding their bikes to work because of safety issues. They're saying that there are not enough bike lanes and they're afraid of being hit by a car, which is a legitimate reason as to not riding a bike to work. In places like Amsterdam and Berlin, there are so many bikers there because they have proper bike lanes for them. So the government should really look into investing bike lanes because that's one of the most effective ways to encourage people to bike to work instead of taking cars. Another thing that Australia could do is to pay people to bike to work, and that's what Milan is doing. So they're paying people on a per mile basis to incentivize them to bike to work. There are also more extreme measures to reduce personal car use, and we see that in London where they have really high transportation tax to encourage people to use the public transportation instead. And also in Oslo, they're going to be banning personal cars from city centers in 2019, and that ban alone will reduce the GHG emissions by half. Other ways to reduce transportation emissions is to ensure that the public transportation is not fossil-based. In Reykjavik, their public buses are powered by hydrogen, and in Bogota, their buses are a mixture of diesel/electric vehicles. On top of that, car sharing can be encouraged as well. We've seen that in many developing cities, such as in Indonesia and in Nigeria, and I think even in Thailand. But in Helsinki in particular, they've developed a smartphone app to encourage car sharing. So taking all of these examples into account, we can see that it is possible for countries and even cities to be sustainable. And this is an important issue because as of today, there are 54% of people living in urban areas, and this number is going to increase to 66% by 2050. With that, we have to meet the needs and the demands of the increasing population. And the only way that we can ensure that we can support this increasing population is to be sustainable. And that's it for this vlog. I hope that you enjoyed it. See you in the next round.